Welcome back, everyone. So this is another session of the Selenium with Specflow training that we are doing. So for tonight, we're going to look into data-driven aspects of the automation testing. So how do we do data-driven tests in Selenium with Specflow? So there are three different categories I will be looking into tonight. So then we look at different ways, and then we'll be able to do some practical aspects on how to use them. So what I'm going to do for us is to go through the slide. Then from there, we'll also look into how it's done practically. So that's going to be the structure for tonight. So this training is handled by Blue Sky Citadel. So if you want to know more about our courses, you can go to blueskyscitadel.com. So, and we've started this particular training for maybe 4 to 5 weeks now. So we've been able to go through end to end, right, on how to set up automation test framework from scratch. And we've been able to follow this process. So we kind of going forward right now. So we're going to be looking into data-driven aspects. So there are three types, three different ways we can actually do data or bring data in, even into our Specflow or using Selenium. So one way is when you parameterize your steps. So your data is actually entered into your feature file steps. So but there are two ways that you can actually bring this data into your steps. You can bring it in as a parameter, and also you can bring it in as a table. So I'm going to look into both ways. That you want to bring it as normal parameter, or you want to bring it as a data table. Another way also that you can actually use is to use scenario outline with examples. So in that regard, you have to start your scenario with scenario outline, then you follow up with the keyword example. So we're going to look into that also, how to use scenario outline and when is that used and how it's used. And this is another thing that is a bit confusing. So some people, and when do we need to use it, and what is the result when we do use it, basically. So then the third one is basically a bit advanced for some people. You might not need to use this one at all, but it's good to know. So at this point, it might be advanced. You might need to link your code with some C# objects and everything. So, but if you really are looking to get your external files into your Specflow test framework, you could use Excel file, or you can also use CSV files or JSON or XML, depending on where your data is stored. So you can then use that as a parameter to where that particular data is stored, and you can pass that file and you can get your data in from the file. For newbies, this is going to be advanced, so I'm not going to cover this in this training, so that you don't get scared, to be honest. So but if time permits, in the next section we will look into how you can actually do this. So but I'll focus on the first two for this evening actually. So the first one is parameterization in feature files, in your feature steps, basically. So how do you do that? So for instance, when you're writing your step, I think we looked into this last week, you can actually say something like giving and navigate to www.givefree.com, right? Or when you're passing data in, you put in the code like I've done. So I will show you the one that we did last week without the parameter, and also the one that we are doing right now with the parameter. So this is an example. Instead of saying giving and navigate to site basically, and then your step definition will have your site that you are going into, you're navigating into, but you can as well expose that data at the feature step. So you would just say given and navigate to site, then you pass that particular site that you get into as a parameter. So when you are doing that, you put in the code in open code, then at the end with a closing code. This is how you do. An example also is this one that has got two parameters I'm passing right now. So given and navigate to the site, as like the one I've done at the top, then when I enter email, so also I'm also passing my email address as a parameter in my feature step. I also would want to say also it's so possible for you to have many parameters in this particular step actually. So you can actually given an enter email and you put that email address as parameter, and you can say and password, you put your password as parameter. So that line is going to have two parameters basically. So that's another way to do this also. So by this, when you get your step definition, it's going to be like this basically. So the previous one that we've done without any parameter, you don't have anything in here basically as an argument, but because you're actually passing a parameter, so you will have an argument. So the argument we are getting is a string because our URL that you are expecting is a string. You could also, by default, it's going to be string. So, but as time goes on, you would know when I am passing an integer or a different data object. So for now, to just make it simple, actually, let's assume that our parameter is a string, which actually it is, because our URL that we are passing is going to be a string. So now you have your annotation at the top, giving and navigate to site. So, and you have this binding actually, so which is basically an annotation for your parameter. So then you have your method public void, and then giving and navigate to site, and then you are actually getting this parameter string po, that parameter 0. That's basically what it means actually. So then the second feature step that we have when I enter email, so the same thing also, you have another parameter for that one basically, so which is also getting from argument PO as parameter, or P0 rather as parameter. So and that's what you get. So now the next step now, because by default this is what we have, and when we start to use, because you're going to be using that PO or P0, whatever it is in your step, in your feature step here, you're going to be saying navigate to PO or something like that, or send elements, and you're going to be saying, oh, this is the element that you want to send keys into. So, but to make it meaningful, and so that you don't get confused, you could change that PO to something that actually make meaning to you. So as you can see now, I have changed it from string URL PO to URL, and also I have also changed this one also to email. So in my text, in my method here, when I replace this, I will be using emails instead of PO basically. So this is the way to do this. So now, so from there I can write my method, or what I want to, the actions I want to perform on the URL, like navigate to URL or something, or call my page object for the URL basically, so that I can navigate to that particular page. The same way also, I can also now send keys. The keys I want to send is the email, so I will call my page object and I'll pass the email that I am getting. So basically this email will now be coming from my feature file. So, and then when I call my page object, I would be actually passing the email that I get from the feature file into it. So we're going to look into how to do this using the practical session and after this particular slide. So another step, like I said, is I think, I mentioned there are two ways here actually. So the second one is the using table. I actually omitted that at this instance right now because it's for newbies. I think it's a bit complex. There are a lot of things that you need to do. So I would jump into the example first because I think that is kind of it will now be seamless because it's similar to using your feature step. So after I have done the example one, I'll come back to the table. So the second one is the example. So when you're going to use scenario outline, so scenario outline is actually used to run same scenario for different times. So for instance, I've got my scenario outline. I've got this particular feature right now that I want to run, but I want to run them for 2 times using different data. So for instance, I want to navigate to this site, but I want to after I navigate to the site, I want to fill in emails and password. So, but my emails will be the first attempt will be these emails with this password, but the second attempt I want to use a different email for as my test data. So what I'm going to do right now is to use scenario outline. Bear in mind also that when you use scenario outline instead of scenario, you have to use example. So if you put scenario here and you put example here, this will not work. It's going to display an error message for you that you cannot use scenario with example. So you can only use examples when you have scenario outline. So please bear that in mind. It might be one of the mistakes that you will make if you are writing scenario here and you are putting example. That will not work. So you only use examples for scenario outlines. So now let's go now. So I've got scenario outline, the name of my scenario. So I've got this particular step, which is basically a step with another parameter, which is similar to what I've used before. But now, as you can see, for me to be able to use example, I now have another way to actually pass the parameter. In this one, I am passing the heading of my scenario of the parameter. This is not the read data. In the first one that we did, we used the read data. As you can see, this is the read data we are passing. But in this one, this is basically the title or the heading of the data. So I'm passing an email. But what is my email? My email is basically. So like I said now, so the same way for the password, right? I am now passing the password as a heading, basically, not the read password. So now when I say enter password, it's going to go into my data table, which is in the example, and take the read data from there. Unlike the one that we've done here, the read data is passed as an argument. But when you are using example, you have to be passing the title or the heading of that particular data that you are passing. So which is that's the difference between the other one. But if you look into the step definition, so it's going to be the same thing basically. So it's only the only difference is how you pass it with this less than and the name of that particular header and then greater than. So but everything is wrapped together in the code. But for instance, the one that we had before, which is the passing it directly into your feature file, so has not got any less than or greater than. So if you put less than or greater than at this point, it would treat it as if you are actually passing an example data type. think there's a question. Okay, cool. So, okay, so that is, like I said, one, if you look into the step definition, there's no kind of difference from the two steps, the two methods that we've used actually. So you can see this is getting a string PO, and that one also is getting the same thing. So, and so you need to be careful, right? Because both of them would have the same method basically. The only difference is how you are going to be using them in the page object. Okay, all right. So what happens now is, so as you can see, the same thing I've done before is what I'm going to do. I've done in the same way. For me to be able to clearly identify my parameter that I'm passing, I have changed this particular PO to what is related, which is a string URL. So because I'm passing the URL the same way I am also passing email address here, I'm passing parameter. So you could also, if you already have a page of a step that you created with the first method, which is passing it like this, you can actually reuse it because it's the same thing basically. So you don't need to recreate another one, but you will just need to add your example and your scenario outline. So like feature step Specflow allows you to be able to reuse your step basically. So which I think is a good thing. So you don't need to recreate it, but because some people will want to recreate it again and copy it in one of these steps, and then because of now they are having two steps doing the same thing, so then Specflow will be confused to say which one am I going to use. So then you have an issue, or you have an error that was because it doesn't know which step to use. So bear in mind that in Specflow you shouldn't have same step with the same annotation basically, and so that you don't find yourself into issues where it doesn't know which step to use. So that is the second way to pass data in. So, and now the third one, which I think it could be a bit daunting for newbies, is now when you are going to be using tables. In some instance, you want to pass your data within your step. So let's say your step is when I enter email address and password. This is one step basically. So, but you want to pass the parameter into this particular step. So what you would do is you will create a data table. Your data table will be email and password. Then you separate with this pipe. So, and also bear in mind the example has got the pipe also. So, and I know it could be, if you are not familiar with how to get the pipe. So on my own keyboard is after the shift basically. So, but just if you don't just copy, and if you see any pipe or something like that. So, well, this is kind of a pipe basically. So it's not exclamation and it's not one. So that people don't write one. So could you please show an example of when we have used one or two steps on occasion? So I'll go into the practical steps later, so to clarify that as time goes on. So okay, so there's a sample. Yeah, I would look into that later. So okay, all right. So now, so in the third method, which is basically you creating a data table, and also passing that data table to your step. So this is a bit complex because there are a lot of things that you need to do. So once you've created your data, your step, your feature file as this. So the next step now, when you try to generate your step, as you can see, the other one, you have your string and parameter. But in the data table, as you can see, the first given, it's in the normal approach that we do in method 1, and this is the third method. In the third method, when this particular step is generated, as you can see, this is what you're going to have. You're going to have a table because you are passing a table. It's different from when we have our scenario outline. Our scenario outline, even though we are passing a table, right, in this, it's not used as a table. It's actually used as single parameter. So that's why I said I'm going to try to first do step 1 and step 3 because they are kind of similar. But in this particular one that we are looking into right now using data table, when you generate your step definition, it doesn't create one string for you as parameter. It actually send a data table as argument. So, and then for you to be able to use this data table in your step, there are a lot of things that you need to do basically. So you need to be able to read that table, and then you need to, after reading that table, you need to be able to use that table. So there are things that different things that you need to do. The first thing, you need to add tech talk Specflow assist namespace to the top of your files. I think we've been doing this in most of our cases that we've seen last week. So where you put the namespace using tech talk Specflow dot maybe different thing, or you will need this particular namespace. Then you would also create an instance, and that will have like an extension of the table that you want to convert. So you convert the table to an object. So for you to also do that, you would also create an object that you want to be converted into. The object will be a class, and then inside the class you would also specify the data that you are passing basically. So as we have here in our case, we have the email and we have the password. So you will create a class with those variables. So you have the email and you have the password. So and you put in the name of the class. So then later after that, so this is our adjust for this. This is our feature file. So inside the feature file, we have this, and this will be our step definition. We have the using Specflow.assist. So then I don't want to focus on this because this is kind of the old method 1. So this is the method that I'm looking into right now. So I'm going to say, okay, and I want to get my login data out. So for me to get my login data out, you will say table, that table dot, you create instance of that particular table. This is not the right one. Okay, this is what I have actually come up with actually. So now my login data is equal to table dot create instance, and I've also created a class called login details. So this is what you would normally do. So now if you now go into login details.email, it will store your email for this particular one. That's what is going to be stored in there. So if you say, I want to see what is in login details password, that will store your password in my password basically in there. So that is what we're going to. So this is kind of like a full example of how to use the third method basically. So that will be the data driven, how we do that. So we're going to go into the demonstration of these steps from beginning to the end. So any question before I do the demo?